Well, hello everyone. Here to show you the Big Bird postal carrier coloring right here. As you see right here, is I went ahead and drew Big Bird, and along right here, you guys, it's like Elmo, like with Elmo that you could it could be Oscar, or it could be any other Sesame Street characters that you may be familiar with. But you got it right here is talking about with postal carrier, and talking about is that if most of us here, it's like from whenever, if we can remember, maybe whenever we were first whenever we were young, or maybe whenever you first came to America, or wherever country that maybe you were it's like you're from, or something like that you would have it to where that you would get taught how to deliver letters, and they get taught how to write letters, and then also deliver letters as well. But we're talking about for a Big Bird postal carrier is that talking about is that whenever we were young, that I can remember that one of the things that I learned whenever I was going to school, of course, was learning how to write your own learn how to mail letters and stuff. But talking about it's like with the postal carrier right there, it's like if we were to use a postal carrier kind of like that, which most of them, it's like mail, the mail people that mailman or mail lady, that a lot of times that they would have the carriers, or that they would have like the little carrier, that the little carts the cars that they would drive around, and you would probably think that how much mail it holds, maybe about 15 to 1,600, maybe to 2,000 envelopes per cars, what they hold if they go from block to block, to street to street it is. But basically is for the postal carrier is talking about whenever if we were to buy a stamp, which I'm sure that most people have had their experiences whenever they would go to the post office and they would buy a stamp, is that whenever you go out and buy a stamp, that a lot of times that you would notice that you would maybe see maybe a few dollar signs, is a dollar, see if you go and stay green here, but go ahead, you would see dollar signs for like if you wanted to buy a box. It's like if you were shipping something, it could be which nowadays they got the rules about that, to where that if you were to go to the post office and buy something to be shipped, and you're talking about for the shipping and handling charges, and then along with working with the USPS office, United States Postal Service, and along with the packaging or FedEx and UPS, those type of delivery companies that normally which I'm kind of pretty much familiar with, but of course I really don't know what all there is, but basically is that the number of times I've been to the postal services, the post office, it is that a lot of times that people would probably say that that they would, if they were in there, maybe to mail something, or to have something mailed to that certain someone, that a lot of times it's like in between like an envelope like this right here, is that the address a lot of times will go on the top left corner of the envelope, and then where from where it was going, that it would usually go in the center, and then the return address will be located about right here. And I would probably say that the number of times I have mailed anything, it could be a tax return, or it could be something related to a bill, or it could be food stamps, or whatever it is, that a lot of times that they could probably say that good to have the return address right there on the left corner, on the top left corner, so that way they'll know about exactly where it came from. And most of the time I have not really, or hardly ever, had gotten any returns from the postal service. I have not gotten any mail that got declined or whatever that was sent back. But maybe every once in a while that I would get some mail back that they said could never be delivered. But on the other hand too, that the number of times that I've been to the postal service is that the times that I've been in there, that I would probably say that I would maybe I would not like the idea of having to pay about maybe 42 or so cents, 42 cents for a postal stamp. But on the other hand, too, that I guess that, a lot of people there, employees there at the post office, would probably say that from wherever it goes, it's like that you may have to pay the extra cost for the for that that insurance. And the way I think about it is that with most customers that you could probably think about is that with the post office, which I would think most of them would do that they would have it to where that you can make your own design for a postal stamp. That if you were to maybe do it online, which nowadays they have it to where you can do a lot of stuff online, and the things that you can maybe do online is maybe not really to do with coloring. More likely is that which I have had stuff mailed to me from through online orders. It is that a lot of people will probably say that to be careful with anything that you're shopping for online. I guess because due to maybe possibly say scams or whatever you call it, and other common situations. But anyway, but if you were to order anything online, a lot of times they would have it to where that to your Nook or your e-reader, a tablet or whatever that you call it, a smartphone. That a lot of times they could probably say that that a lot of times it's not really a required too much of a postal stamp that comes with the sticker that it goes on an envelope. A lot of times I guess you say that it comes with you have to type in a code or something like that. Then they need to know your address and then where it's going, and then of course that other sources of information, such as maybe a destination code or whatever. But I remember this year whenever I filed my taxes, that of course it needed my address, and then of course that I could not even file it electronically because due to the fact because of an entry code that they wanted me to enter, and I remember I did not even have it at the time, and more likely I'll just keep that in mind for next year, you say. But you got here's planet Earth, and use planet Earth right here as an example of so far with nowadays that depend on, it's like from between the year, if we were to start from the year 1975, it was more likely whenever they did have computers, and maybe not everybody had them, but they would use stuff like envelopes, and maybe postal stamps were about maybe 37, maybe 38, maybe 25 cents, a stamp, something like that, maybe 15 cents a stamp. But anyway, but back then, and then of course to now, if we were thinking about maybe in the next 5 years from now, go ahead and just say maybe by 2018, it is by 2018 that more likely that may have it to where a lot of that stuff could be more likely done online. And I'm just thinking about that between if they were to have maybe digital watches, or maybe it's like a little postal pen that's like a pen that works like this, and then there's like a little code right there that goes in. It's like the code, and then it gets mailed to another pen, and it's automatically programmed onto a digital writing pad. It is this such and such is your address. But I would probably say that I learned how to write envelopes, not really stuff them, but learned how to write envelopes whenever I was like in the fourth grade. It was, I think I must have only been about maybe 10 years old whenever I got in some practice, and they would give you practice envelopes. And I could probably say that nowadays with envelopes, that some of them they give you depend on the measurement too, which I would probably say this is a pretty good sized envelope. But let's just say that if you were to be given a bill, then a lot of times if you had to pay a bill or whatever through the postal mail or whatever it is, that it will be probably about maybe half the size right here. It will be about maybe about that size, and then you would have lines about maybe that size to write on. And I would probably say that that working with a number of those lines, a lot of people would probably think that a lot of times if you want to write the letter G as in it's going here or it's going there, that a lot of people may write like that, or kind of write, say, scribbly, or it's like G like that or something like that. But other than that, that a lot of people would think that with the handwriting is that if you want to write the address, it's like kind of like this, write address, and that more likely you would only be able to fit one word on that line right there. It's like from what you learned whenever you were in the first and second grade. I remember this is what the lines will look like. That of course, if you saw in my earlier YouTube videos, that like letter G would look kind of like that, and then lowercase g is like for the ABCs. But then of course with my handwriting now, of course it kind of more likely looks like this right here. G, and then for address. And I would probably say that really nobody really has taught me really how or if you want to use P.O. Box, but anyway, nobody really has taught me how to write small. I guess you could say that you pretty much learned how to write small. I guess depending on what you were doing, and maybe about how much time that you want to spend on something. A lot of people would probably think that with your handwriting, I guess people that I know even tell me that got an alright handwriting. Sometimes it could be scribbly or whatever, but on the other hand too, if it's readable. But I really think that the whole point of it is like for a Big Bird postal carrier is talking about is that that the whole matter is that whenever if you were to mail a letter, that more likely that they could probably say the most important parts about mailing something is knowing about is how it's handled and where it's going. A lot of people would probably say that I don't think it's fair that I'm having to pay $10 just to mail something. Maybe that a lot of times they go by the weight too, which I know that they up there at the post office that they have a weight that they have scales where they would weigh from whatever you're going to be mailing, and a lot of times if it's more than 16.2 or so ounces, if it weighs about maybe 4 or 5 pounds, and more likely it's possible that they may charge you maybe $9 or $10 for the of course for the. It's like if it's priority mail. I know that nowadays with the post office they got priority mail, and then of course first class and stuff like that. But then on the other hand too, that they could probably say that you may have to pay extra for the postage, and of course for that for whatever you need for filling out that from where it's going, and then if you want any type of insurance along with it. But then on the other hand too, that I'm sure maybe the next 5 years from now, they may already have it now, that depending on what post office you go to, that they have it to where you can say customize, you make your own idea for whatever stamp design that you want to use. And more likely that they could probably say that if it has something to do with the holidays or whatever, then a lot of times they could probably say that you can use that, or it's if it fits, it ships anywhere in the country for a low freight rate, something like that. But then on the other hand too, that you could probably think about is that if I do the packaging, then you do the mailing. But then on the other hand too, that you could probably say that according to the rules, that more likely that may be effective maybe by March, by 2015 or 2016, especially from our tax returns, that maybe the postal service will no longer be supporting this program or that networking or whatever it is. But then on the other hand too, that we can all think about is that if we're going to be mailing something or receiving something in the mail, then we can also know about the time and effort makes for great business. And the way I think about it is like for Big Bird is that we can all know that it's like watching Sesame Street, is to know about what we learn about we learn things every day. And one of those things, of course, is to know about learning about what's new to soon to come. And I would probably say that for Howard, the mail is going to be delivered maybe in the next 5 years from now. More likely that I don't know if I'll be the first to know about it. Then maybe first discover about whatever ways they have for options. But other than that, is that if there is a way that I can maybe think about to make it easier for anybody who's trying to mail something, more likely is to know that you may not always agree on the prices, and then maybe not always agree on about what you had to do to mail something. But then on the other hand too, that you can maybe also agree on the fact about whenever you do mail something, that a lot of times that the postal service will probably say that it's good to guarantee that we won't lose it. Just tell us from where it's going, and then maybe where it's coming from, and such and such. And you would probably think that nowadays with the postal service, is why is it that they want your signature, but every time. It's like if it's a UPS, or if it's the FedEx offices and stuff like that, depending on what how it's delivered or whatever, that who received the mail, and of course your name may not even be on that package. I've done it a couple times. Once, a couple times, maybe for a neighbor, or maybe for somebody that asked me to do him a favor, is that whoever receives the package, has to sign the form. But then on the other hand too, that you could probably say that if your name's not on the package, you don't get to sign the form. But then it's like but of course that if you do sign the form from whatever that is delivered, then they could probably say that it was delivered, and then we have the information for who received it, and then more likely that I guess that they have it to where that they arrange it to where that that they release the names or whatever you call it. But a lot of security reasons, and I'm sure a lot of concerns and questions later on about how that services works. But other for Big Bird is like for Big Bird is to know that is for each one of us. It's like no matter if it's in the United States of America, or Latin America, or in Libya or whatever, that you each have a job to do, and one of those jobs, of course, is to know is taking care of responsibilities. But so far as Big Bird and Big Bird Postal Carrier.